Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are in day 99 of the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. And the first set of news that I want to discuss is the possible prospects of the United States providing the Ukrainian armed forces with the MQ-9 Reaper long-range endurance drone, which is specifically designed not just for reconnaissance, but also offers a very significant attack component as well, just as does the Predator. But the Reaper drone, the drone that the Ukrainians could possibly get, has a much higher payload in terms of the ordnance that it can carry. And this makes the situation in terms of escalation if the Ukrainians receive said drones, which at this point I think would be rather unlikely, and I'll try to explain why. And I think the reason I'll try to give you, the viewer, the reason why it continues down that pathway to escalation. So, unlike the TB2 drone that the Ukrainians are currently deploying from Turkish sources, very effective system. With a range of just in excess of over 100 miles. What makes the MQ-9 or the Reaper drone much more robust in capability is not just the payload that the Reaper is designed to carry, but the range. And not only the range, given the technology that's in the Reaper, it operates on a satellite uplink. So what you could have happen, in theory, is that you could have a Reaper drone take off in western Ukraine towards the Polish border at some remote airfield that may have not been yet destroyed by Russian forces, or it could take off from a highway even. Now, the unique thing about the Reaper is once that it's airborne, that drone could very well be controlled directly from the United States. There could be a U.S. aircrew controlling that Reaper drone. And I guess the question is, how would you prove to the Russians that the United States or some other NATO partner is not controlling those drones from the United States or from some other headquarters in Western Europe? Well, you can't. You simply cannot. And in cases, in prior operational cases with the deployment of MQ-9 Reapers that were operating in Afghanistan, Iraq, there was times where, because the drone can operate for up to 30 hours and loiter over a certain area for 30 hours, that you would have a multitude of air crews operating one drone. So, for instance, you would have a Reaper drone take off and operate near Balad, Iraq, and that air crew in Balad was controlling the MQ-9 Reaper. And then once they would leave duty or finish their shift, another air crew located inside the United States would then take over the operational capacity of that drone. So you can see why it becomes very probable that the Russians could believe at some point that maybe the United States is in fact controlling these physical drones that are taking off from western Ukraine. So that's why I think it's very, very unlikely we would see the deployment of the MQ-9 Reaper in any sufficient numbers over Ukraine. I could be wrong on this. We could start to see the Reaper start to be deployed. Now, if that happens, we are really heading down the rabbit hole, folks, because the probability that the United States could be controlling those drones is very, very likely. And maybe not always controlling the drones, but but yeah, they would have to be controlling the drones at some point, because there's training issues that would go into play. The Russians would be looking for those control stations located inside of Ukraine themselves, and then obviously if the Russians can't find those control stations, then those control stations are outside of the Ukraine, and that's another unique capability about with these drones. You don't need a large footprint of forces on the ground that are other than loading munitions onto the drone in some rudimentary shelter, and the technology has become much better in terms of deploying these drones with a much less of a footprint, where you can control these drones from sites thousands and thousands of miles away from the actual where the drones take off. Unlike the direct data link with a ground station with the TB2 drone that is currently being used. So that should get everybody's attention and cause some concern if that in fact happens. If we do see those drones start to operate over Ukraine, specifically the Reaper or the Predator, we could be really heading towards something nasty between Russia and obviously the West. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. I don't believe that it will change the battlefield equation that much. Obviously, with the drone being much larger than the TB2 drone, it may also create a disadvantage for Ukrainian forces as well, because with that large size comes a larger radar cross section, which the Russians may have a easier time identifying those aircraft in the air, where we can clearly see that the small radar cross section of the smaller TB2 drone has caused the Russians some issues in terms of targeting those drones and getting good radar tracks on some of those drones. I don't think it would be that much. I think it would be easier for the Russians to track and target the Reapers as opposed to the TB2. So, where the extended range is good, the enhanced payload is good. But if the Russians can see those drones, and obviously they'll be able to shoot those drones down fairly effectively. So that is something also that's going to probably play into whether the Ukrainians get those drones and if they would be effective, and just how effective the Russians would be at locating those drones and then shooting those drones down over Ukrainian airspace. So we'll have to wait and see how that really kind of unfolds. So in Battlefront news, we continue to see the Russians now counterattacking just to the north and northeast of Kharkiv. We do know that at one point the Ukrainian military had launched a limited counteroffensive in this area that did cause the Russians some concern. And the Russians have since counterattacked and taken back some of these little villages to the north of Kharkiv that were under the control of Ukrainian forces. And we can say also that Ukrainian forces are no longer capable of now directly crossing the Russian border. There's now a rough buffer zone north of Kharkiv that the Russians adequately control. Furthermore, it would appear that a Ukrainian offensive running kind of southeast of Kharkiv in this direction towards Izum has also been reduced as well, and we look more or less to see stationary types of warfare continuing within the Kharkiv area of operation. And much more attention right now is being played in terms of the southeast locales towards Severodonetsk and Lysychansk and other areas in that environment. But the Russians have regained some ground in this area and continue to be able to hit targets in Kharkov with some of its longer range multiple launch rocket systems and other heavier systems as well. But the Ukrainians have a fairly good defensive posture around Kharkov, and the likelihood of a renewed Russian push towards that city at this point is rather reduced. So we don't anticipate a Russian move on Kharkov at this time, and we'll probably continue to see the same trading of artillery attacks on each other, and the continued use of Ukrainian smaller drones continuing to harry Russian forces, as we will also see the Russians deploy also said systems as well. And what I'll do is I'll move down to the next area on the map near along the Donetsk River area, and we'll have a conversation about that. So not a lot has changed here as well. We continue to see the Russians clearing several Donetsk and looking to take control of all territory kind of to the east, on the eastern bank of the Donetsk River, which runs along this location as well. But again, not a lot of in terms of maneuvering by either side. Just the continued use of a lot of heavy artillery, which, as I talked about in previous videos, is really taking a significant toll on Ukrainian forces, and that pressure is continuing to build. And we may talk about this positional battle for some time as the Russians continue to employ this sort of strategy against Ukrainian forces. But at a certain point, we're going to kind of reach this precipice of where the pressure on the Ukrainian military is so great. And again, this is the Russian tactical theory, strategic theory in terms of what the Russians are trying to do against the Ukrainians. But again, just really designed to wear down and degrade the Ukrainian military in this area of operations until they basically collapse. And then you could possibly see some fairly large-scale maneuvers by the Russian military continuing to take shape as the Ukrainian military were to collapse, if that strategy and that tactic were to pan out for Russian forces. In other areas, again, not a lot has really changed. We saw these initial breakouts near Izum in this area. We had seen Russian forces actually seize control of this town here, Kamyshovaka. We understand that Russian forces have in fact withdrawn now from this town. And the Russians are now doing what they do in terms of utilizing a lot of artillery against Ukrainian forces that have kind of moved back into this area. Now, the question is the Ukrainians going to be able to continue to amass forces in this area, given the kind of heavy shelling that is taking place against these forces? So we have elements of the 25th Air Mobile Brigade operating in this area with a host of territorial units, and then obviously further to the southeast is the 3rd Tank Brigade of the Ukrainian military as well. So we'll have to see how that pans out, and if the Russians make another effort towards Kamyshovaka and look to retake that town. And further towards the southwest area of operations is what's happening in, let's see if that switched, and it did, in Zaporizhzhia. And we continue to see a buildup of Russian forces. There has been some, what I believe are limited reconnaissance and force operation by Russian forces kind of to the south and southeast of Zaporizhzhia. I do believe the Russians are massing forces in this area for what could be something fairly significant. And I talked about before the possibility of large maneuver action designed to cut the Zaporizhzhia to Marinka highway located in this area. There's probably not quite enough Ukrainian forces in this area if the full weight of a multi-Russian divisional operation were to take place. Right now you have roughly 3 brigades now operating in this fairly long running from Donetsk to Zaporizhzhia. You have the 59th Brigade, supporting elements of the 45th Artillery Brigade, 53rd Mech Brigade, and then the 23rd Security Brigade. So, and that's a National Guard unit. So, relatively light formations that are available in case there is a major Russian frontal operation in this area, which I believe is being prepared for, and we may see something happen here in the I don't want to say near future, but they are definitely, meaning the Russian forces are definitely conducting reconnaissance in force to scout out, identify weak points in Ukrainian force construct in this area that we're looking at right now. So we'll have to wait, see what happens. But right now, I think really I'm very interested to, again, as I just talked about at the beginning of the video, to see if the United States provides the MQ-9 Reaper drone. If that happens, hold on, because this could get interesting. And I think the idea by providing the drones in terms of those inside of the United States wanting to support Ukraine feels good, but I don't think those wanting to provide those drones to Ukraine fully understand the ramifications of providing those drones to Ukraine, meaning that the Russians could see that as a direct attack by U.S. military assets controlling those drones from the United States, unlike the TB2 drone that the Ukrainians are currently using. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but very, very disturbing, a bit of news if you're opposed to thermonuclear war. If not, then then God bless you. But I for one, don't want to see mushroom clouds at this point, and unfortunately, I think it is possible, given the trajectory of this conflict, at least in more of a limited capacity. Is limited nuclear war possible? Yeah, I think it is, but before we even get there, I think we would see obviously an exchange and the war start to expand into other areas, meaning you have the Baltic states, obviously, other areas that Russia could target NATO assets, and then what does that lead to is the ultimate question. So that's kind of where we're at for today. I appreciate everybody joining us, and more to come very, very soon. Have a good day.